Oh, welcome in. I hope you're enjoying some creepy rabbits, some creepy AI-generated Christmas rabbits. We're setting up for Coder Radio 550 and 551, the last coders of the year. And we were just watching some clips over at Jupiter.tube. We've been going for about 20-ish minutes over there. And I just hit pause on a clip because I felt like it will give us, hopefully, some context to a conversation coming up in 550 or 551. For that, we're going to go back in time to 1998, when it was Elon Musk and internet startups versus Microsoft. And the U.S. Justice Department was gearing up to battle Microsoft. The audio's not great, but the vintage makes up for it. Welcome in. Join us over at coder.show/matrix if you would. We do need you to help us title this thing. Wouldn't you like to title the last episodes of the year? 550 comes out for Christmas, and 551 will be out just after New Year's. Come on in, coder.show/matrix. While we set up for Coder Radio, Mr. Dominic en route, and here we go back in time.
Charged this time is the Justice Department's chief trust buster, Joel Klein. He claims Microsoft has bullied and intimidated a wide array of high-tech firms.
We will show a significant effort to stifle competition, harm consumers, and prevent the market from having people compete on the merits.
Defending Microsoft, attorney Bill Newcomb.
Will show that Microsoft is a vigorous but a very fair competitor, and that as a result of our competition and our innovation, customers have benefited by getting better technology quicker and at lower prices.
Geez, that's Google's argument today, isn't it? I'm pretty sure that would be Google's argument.
In an important example, Microsoft did streamline things for consumers by adding, for free, its browser, known as Internet Explorer, to its popular Windows operating system. The browser is basically a navigation system that helps you connect with the information you want on the Internet. But the government complains that by bundling or tying its browser to its other products, Microsoft denied consumers a choice and unfairly blocked another company, Netscape, from marketing its own browser.
Microsoft should not be allowed to own the browser market. If they do that, then they will own the gateway to the internet for every consumer, and that is almost certainly likely to result in a less valuable experience for the consumer.
Not everyone agrees.
If you're not willing to engage in competition, why are you in Silicon Valley?
T.J. Rogers, founder and CEO of Cypress Semiconductors.
The man who started Netscape became multi-10 millionaires overnight, and now they're whining and crying because Microsoft has the force and just went whack and said, here it is, a better software package, not just a browser, but everything you want, guaranteed to work in one package, running on your computer, $99. What do you think?
Well, some competitors think Microsoft's tactics are unfair. Peter Doherty owns Digital Bitcasting.
Man, that's an old reference now.
Massachusetts company that makes
All right.
software that channels audio.
So let's take a moment. I just thought that was kind of an interesting little retrospective. I also like the way she said, the government. I don't know, something about the way that gal says the government. I could hear that all day. Now, let's go to some stories that are actually developing as we stream. So this is happening right now. These are breaking news. Again, context for the show. Some of this is going to come up. You can guarantee it.
Details. Phil, what can you tell us?
Kelly, Trevor Milton has been sentenced to 4 years in prison for his role in fraud committed at Nikola when he was the CEO. 2 counts of wire fraud, 1 count of securities fraud. The prosecutors were looking for 11 years in prison. The defense attorneys were arguing that Trevor Milton should be given probation, in part to care for his wife who has been ill. The judge ultimately decided Trevor Milton, the founder and former CEO of Nikola, will be spending the next 4 years, at least that's the sentence, 4 years in prison for fraud. Kelly, back to you.
Phil, is this a surprising sentence? Because it's, to see someone going and now having to spend significant jail time really tells you about the seriousness of what they said took place here.
Well, these were serious crimes. I mean, if you were an investor and you bought into what Trevor Milton was selling when he was the CEO, in the summer of 2020, you could make an argument. You could say, hey, look, this caused me a lot of financial harm. And what the judge ultimately had to decide was, did that harm that was caused by Trevor Milton making the claims that he made, the wire fraud claims as well as the security fraud, was that worth a decade in prison, or was it worth much less? And ultimately, he decided 4 years was the appropriate term. Also, keep in mind.
Would you mind slipping it under the door for winter island? Or could that be ramen? My legs feel like straws.
All right, one more breaking story happening today as we go on the air, and then it's going to be showtime. Stand by. We got to cover this too.
We have some breaking news for you. Adobe and Figma have mutually agreed to terminate their $20 billion merger agreement. The company said that decision was based on the joint assessment that there is no clear path to get approvals from regulators in the EU and the UK. Adobe is going to be paying a breakup fee of $1 billion. Joe, this is pretty interesting because they had gone through, they got shut down by the markets committee in the UK that had some of the CMA had warned about some problems that they were facing with this. And as you know, in the UK, it's very hard to get anything passed because there is no regulatory body to appeal to. You have to appeal back to the CMA. That was what Microsoft ended up doing. It was kind of crazy. People couldn't believe they got it passed, but they did with Microsoft get Activision Blizzard passed even after the CMA basically said it had some serious problems with it. But it just shows you problems with regulators around the world, the idea of trying to get these deals done. This, again, was a $20 billion deal, was looked at a really big thing. There were a lot of VCs who were going to get back maybe 30 to 50 times their money on going through with Figma. But regulatory approval today, the same day that we're announcing that Illumina announced that it's giving up on Grail, it's going to undo that deal. Regulatory approval around the globe is.
Is that a leather blouse? Is that a leather blouse? That's wild. Isn't that wild? That's really something. All right, one more breaking story. Just because I did see this come up in the chat room, and this is one that I was following. Major steel company, the steel company.
Breaking news, Nippon Steel Corporation announces that it will acquire U.S. Steel. They are Japan's largest steel maker, and the question now becomes, what does this mean for U.S. Steel?
U.S. Steel will now be owned by a Japanese company. The U.S. Steel Company, $14.1 billion. What do you think about this?
Which, of course, was founded in Pittsburgh and has its headquarters downtown. Well, we expect to know more following a joint conference call involving the two companies later this morning, and certainly we will keep you updated.
All right, I feel updated. Yeah. Woof. That was nice. I like that. That hits. Bloomberg's coverage on the story.
Watch the open. U.S. Steel, Japanese steelmaker Nippon agreeing to buy the company for $14.1 billion. Simone Foxman has this one. Hey, Simone.
Hey, John. Yeah, what would happen to U.S. Steel had been the talk of the metals market ever since August. You may remember then it received some bids from the likes of Cleveland-Cliffs, from Esmark. Those bids were around $7.25 to $7.8 billion. None of them panned out, but the company did go forward with a strategic review, and apparently that was a smart move because Nippon agreeing to pay $14.1 billion in cash. That equates to about $55 a share, and that explains some of this dramatic pop that we are seeing, over 26% in the shares this morning. Now, the quick react from BMO here, surprisingly high price for U.S. Steel, and the union's strong support for the Cleveland-Cliffs bid that had happened back in August, and that company's ability to maybe bid again could still complicate this transaction. But overall, U.S. Steel has been trying to transform itself, focused more on remelting scrap into steel rather than turning iron ore into steel. And overall, steel producers may really benefit from some of the Inflation Reduction Act programs, broader investment in green infrastructure, especially in the United States. Nippon also citing growing U.S.
Well, wait a minute now. If that was true, then why couldn't U.S. Steel? This feels like an indictment on the actual real economy and the policies in place. I mean, after all this talk about the Inflation Reduction Act, about onshoring manufacturing, we can't figure out how to make a mainstay of the U.S. production engine economically viable, and it's now going to be run by a foreign company. I mean, it is what it is. But to me, it would seem to suggest a failure of market and a failure of policies. Perhaps when the money got more expensive, their situation became untenable. But, oh, you hate to see it, don't you? All right, while we wait for Mr. Dominic, I have one story that I thought I'd play. I haven't seen a lot of attention about this. This wasn't really on my list, but we might as well cover it since we have a minute. You heard that the video gaming convention, E3, is shutting down? Well, CBS did a piece on that.
It was once one of the largest video game conventions in the United States, and now it's closing after more than 20 years. At its height, the Electronic Entertainment Expo, better known as E3, was the place for video game developers to showcase their new products. But organizers announced this week the event would be shut down for good. Let's bring in Gene Park. He covers video games for the Washington Post. Gene, for the gaming industry, what made E3 such a big event?
This was a retailer-facing trade show where the big video game publishers would show up and basically debut their next biggest products. So if you wanted to find out what the next Nintendo system or the next PlayStation system or the next Xbox system is going to be, E3 was the place to be. And that's also where the biggest games would be headlining too as well.
And what's behind this decision to shut down the convention?
Oh, it's been a long time coming. It really started around 2013 when Nintendo decided to pull out of showing at E3 and started to have their own digital events where they would basically live stream their own product announcements on YouTube. Yeah. And people thought that was strange at first, but then people eventually figured out that...
Well, Nintendo was ahead of it right there, right? And then the pandemic came, and that just sort of became the norm, and, game journalists would probably rather just stay home, watch a video stream, and get the demo downloaded at home with their broadband, which they couldn't do back in the day. Then go all the way to E3, get the plague. It's just, I don't know, maybe the community that covers this also doesn't need the event.
People thought that was strange at first, but then people eventually figured out that was catching on, and the other companies started to do it. PlayStation pulled out in 2018, and then of course the pandemic didn't help things either by shutting down in-person events. So that really accelerated the process of making E3 a little bit very cost prohibitive, actually, for a lot of companies.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So what does the end of E3 say about the future of the gaming industry?
Right now, it's kind of an influx where people are kind of figuring out how to be more consumer-facing. Really, there's no real use for retail-facing trade shows for the video game industry anymore. So now publishers are basically dreaming up their own ways to have, press conferences and YouTube events, and they're trying to basically sell directly to the consumer, and that's part of the media ecosystem changing over the last 2 decades.
What stands out to you in these changes and what's going to happen next? You're so knowledgeable in this area, and for folks like me, I'm really curious.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Yeah, I mean, we just came off from last week with Grand Theft Auto 6, the trailer debuting on YouTube, and that became the most viewed YouTube video by a non-music.
You could have just wrapped it up there, Catherine.
Company ever. So it really
go back to working for the CIA. Don't interview. This is not Catherine's gig. Is like covering the national security situations, right? That's what Catherine does. She's got contacts at the CIA and the Pentagon. For some reason, CBS has her doing this obvious fluff piece here. I don't know. It's weird. And she's just not into it. She's giving her best. I think Bot has it in there. Is that Breath of the Wild? I think you got it. He says, the gap between indie devs and AAA studios is closing, and I think that's part of it. Yeah, there's also like the AAA devs still can afford to go to huge events. The indie devs can't, so they've been coming up with these solutions. There's that. All right, the BBC. This usually gets me banned on YouTube, though. I wonder if I could get this without the BBC. They're really hostile on YouTube. Yikes. One more story, but I don't know if I can play it. You know, I don't know if I have to ever shut down the PeerTube server for like budget reasons. I don't know if I'm going to continue to do video streams because, like, there's just stuff I can't do all the time, constantly. I only complain about half of them. All right. Here's one, though, that I can play because this is from Yahoo, and they don't seem to be... This is not going to be as good of coverage as the BBC, but the BBC goes after me if I play their content on YouTube. Even though it's within the bounds, in my opinion, but what do I know? So we'll play the people that don't have as good as production value, but I think it's an important story.
Well, the EU is investigating Elon Musk's X, formerly known as Twitter, while the bloc's regulator is probing the social media platform for its suspected failure to counter illicit content and disinformation, a lack of advertising transparency, and what it calls a suspected deceptive design of the user interface. It's the first move in the EU's landmark Digital Services Act. For more on this, we want to bring in Yahoo Finance's very own Rick Newman. And Rick, of course, we know that the EU has been really the aggressor or taking lead in a lot of these types of investigations. But what does it mean here for the U.S.? And
has the EU really been the aggressor when you can consider that pretty much every department that can in the Biden administration is currently investigating Elon Musk and one of Elon Musk's companies? How do you get more aggressive than that? I don't know what she defines as aggressive.
And a lot of these types of investigations, but what does it mean here for the U.S. and what we could see play out within the United States?
Yeah, it's interesting because Europe does have stricter rules for social media platforms and online web services companies in general. So what the EU seems to be saying here is they have done what they call a preliminary investigation into X, formerly known as Twitter. And they have found some problems. And anybody who uses Twitter knows you don't have to look very far or peck around very much before you find whether it's bogus content, people posting propaganda, disinformation, even deep fakes and things.
What are we talking about here? What are we talking about? Let's go look at my Twitter feed. Like, what are these people seeing that I'm not seeing? Like, most of my stuff is crazy financial maniacs and Linux people. Like, you know? Okay, so it looked like... Hello, Mr. Dominic. I mean, you know, it's... I'm not seeing disinformation here. I'm not seeing... I don't know, man. It's just wild. There is this go-to line now that the media just runs with every time, and it's just like a throwaway.
Posting propaganda much before you find whether it's bogus content, people posting propaganda, disinformation.
Like, Twitter is who you follow, bro. I don't know. I mean, yes, there's stupid people on there. There's stupid people. I was in a pool, and I heard some of the stupidest shit in my life. Is that business responsible for the misinformation that the crazy guy was sharing with the other people in the pool? It's like, has everybody gone like back to school or something, and we're like living in grade school and high school again?
Chris, it's about trust and safety.
Oh, it gets me so worked up. Also, though, you know, it gets me kind of, I don't know if excited's the right word, but get ready for this. One last thing before we go. The first Bitcoin TV commercial. This is from Bitwise, who's launching, supposedly, if it gets approved, an ETF in the beginning of the year. And they've created a Bitcoin commercial.
Yes.
It's the most interesting man in the world.
These days, Bitcoin.
That's it. That's it.
Look for Bitwise, my friends.
It's the world's most interesting man. That's it. That's it.
Stay thirsty.
But there's 12 of these banks that are pending ETF approval. So they're all going to be doing marketing. Okay. So, I think we're good, right?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Chat room, that's on you then. We just need a really good title. We're going to need 2 of them, actually, so please bang suggests. I got nothing in the title bank for this one. I got no backup title. I got no emergency title in the back pocket. My God. Please bang suggest as we go along. If you're not in that chat room, coder.show/matrix. You want to give us a holiday gift? How about a good title? Yeah, okay. All right. I don't know. I thought I'd go for it, you know?
I hear you.
Yeah, you know, try to get a good title. I say to myself, what would Dean do? Dean would lean in. He said he'd get a good title. That's what he'd do. He'd pour yourself some coffee. Tell the EU to go screw themselves.
Fuck the EU.
And
Always.
submit a good title. All right. Well, chat room, it's on you. All right, I'm going to hit record. Now, why am I hearing you breathe? You got your microphone in your nose? What's going on?
Am I too close?
I don't know. Maybe. You might be a little close. I'm getting the full Dominic.
How's that? A little better?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
I think that we should all
we're not asking
make those businesses
Who
fail.
let him back in here? How many times, guys? Jeez. Just close the fucking door. Okay, and I think we're ready. So chat room. Oh, we need to do our 4 count. Sorry. I got distracted because they keep letting that guy in here. Jump in at 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
4.
All right, here we go. It's Coda Radio 550, and it begins right now. This is Coda Radio, episode 550 for, like, Christmas? Hey, friends, and welcome back to Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show. Taking a pragmatic look at the art and the software and probably some business and all of the technology. It's the holidays, and we're here, and we're doing a pod, and feeling very jolly. It's our host, Mr. Dominic. Hello, Mike.
Oh.
You might still have to come back on that microphone. You're hot. We're getting the full Dominic right now. I mean, I kind of like it. I'm not going to... Oh, hi. Hey. I'm not going to lie. I kind of like it. I want to know if you've been doing this advent calendar code thing that I see people going on in the chat room about. I know you've been doing it some years, but...
I didn't do it this year. This year, things were too hectic. I've been doing actual work, so...
I thought so.
Yeah, but no, more power to people who do it. It's kind of fun. It's like it's literally an advent calendar, right? So it's a different challenge for the 25 days of Christmas.
Would you ever go back and do it after? You wouldn't, would you? Right? Because once the moment's
I never
passed.
go back.
No, right.
Yeah.
Right. I was just looking, and they generally are available after the holidays, and I'll put a link in the show notes. I see there's a couple in here you'd really like, you know, Advent of JavaScript. Hey, how about that?
Oh, no.
Yeah, that seems really good. There's several there's, of course, a Python Advent calendar, a C# Advent calendar, of course. I don't see it in here, but I bet if we asked Wes, he could link us to a Clojure Advent calendar as well. I bet you that exists. You know what else exists for just a limited time? The robe. It's back.
Oh, yes. Everybody needs a robe.
Yep. I think as we record, there's 16 left. With the $10 promo code, if you use the promo code SWIFT, it'll take $10 off. It's expensive and the shipping's bad, but it's a good product and it's very limited. It's very limited. And with the adpocalypse coming around the corner, it may be extremely limited. So you never know. We'll put a link in the show notes. You can go to jupitergarage.com if you want to pick yourself up a very comfortable Coda robe. You can use it during the winter. You can use it during the summer. Just all you have to do is layer. And in the summer, it's the only layer. It's pretty great. jupitergarage.com. How do you like that?
I like our pitch. It's expensive and the shipping is bad.
I know. Product is good. Shipping's bad.
Good.
Yeah.
Shipping is bad.
I'm not even going to lie. It's probably not even the best buying experience either. I mean, it's not bad, but it's fun, being honest. It's not great. John from Matrix linked us to a discussion that's actually by another listener of ours. This has really provoked an ongoing conversation, and that is, should Chris switch to Brave? And I have had some white knights come in and try to save me from the big bad Brave browser.
Should you? I don't know. So what is the value prop of Brave, really?
Well, it's supposed to be privacy, kind of built-in ad blocker. It's got a crap coin you can play around with. But then people keep bringing up to my attention that supposedly there was some data sharing with Microsoft, and that maybe there was even some censoring of search results or manipulation of results on Microsoft's request. I'm not really sure. I don't really care. But, essentially you have some people telling you, well, it seems to be the better browser, doesn't have these problems, it has built-in ad blocking. And other people come up and say it's got privacy issues, it's got this crap crypto coin that it plays around with, and it allegedly leaks fingerprints and, collaborates with Microsoft. But it's quite the controversy, it seems.
Yeah, it's weird to me how like spicy this Chris's browser issues topic has become. I legitimately did not expect that. So
it's still awful too, because
like,
it actually has gotten worse. So recap is I have a browser I have an issue with each major. Why can't I talk, dude? What's going on with my brain?
I don't know what's happening to you.
I'm hearing clicking from your audio.
Clicking from? You want me to restart the?
Maybe. Well, before you do it, let me stop the recording. And then, maybe you might have to unplug and plug. I don't know, or maybe it's nothing. It could be one of those things too.
Let me try to restart.
Okay.
Hang on.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Sorry about that. Hopefully, sometimes it's also just it's not in my head, but it's just like in the remote connection. And there's just not a lot we can do about it.
Is this any better?
Yes, it is. It is better.
Okay. That is very,
right.
very strange.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, I'll pick us up here. Okay, jump in again at 4, Mr. Dominic.
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4.
4.
Okay, and I'll pick it back up. A quick recap for those that haven't been following the browser drama. I seem to have problems with each major browser. Firefox randomly crashes when I interact with it. Edge seems to be losing its state constantly, so I can use Microsoft's Edge browser for a couple of days. Next day I launch it, maybe something didn't unlock, like my keychain in time, and the browser doesn't know who I am, isn't logged in anything, and I spend the first half of my morning relogging anything. On Chrome, I was having an issue with text rendering in Chrome. That, thankfully, seems to be resolved with the most recent update, but with that update, now all of my extensions menus, so, like maybe a Bitwarden drop-down or whatever it might be, a chat GPT summary, whatever that drops down in the browser from the browser menu, those are all cut off now, real narrow. Like you can't see anything in there, so I can't use any extensions on Chrome. And it's just kind of, I'm going around, and now none of my Chromium browsers, Edge and Edge and Chrome, neither one of them can use my camera or my microphone. So I can't do any video calls with a Chromium-based browser on my desktop now. Only Firefox. But the problem with Firefox is if I interact with it, it crashes, which isn't a great look during sales calls.
It's just not the optimal experience.
No, it's so embarrassing, to be honest with you. I had a sales call coming up, and this was last week, and I was thinking, do I do it on the MacBook? The problem is right, I've got the camera set up, and I've got everything all positioned. I got my microphone, my good audio for standard calls. And it's like, do I just bail on all of that and just use the MacBook for this call? But then my video and my audio looks very amateur, but, I don't drop off the call. I decided to YOLO it and use Firefox and just not touch it. And it held up. But it feels pretty silly to be basically, on the precipice of 2024, and these are the problems I'm dealing with. Just what it is. Scale 21X is coming up on March 14th through the 17th. We're going to try to be there with bells on, and also NixCon will be running in parallel to that, the first NixCon North America. And I just want to also make everybody aware that I'm also going to try to be at Texas Linux Fest, which is April 12th through the 13th, and they've just extended their call for papers deadline. So if you're listening to this as it's recently published, they're extending it until the end of December. So basically December 30th. And then last but absolutely not least, also coming up in the first half of the year, Linux Fest Northwest 2024, April 26th through the 28th, in my backyard. A lot of stuff going on. A lot of things coming up. I won't go on and on about them all the time, but I wanted to give you enough heads up now so you could start planning. And then as they get closer, we'll start talking about them a little bit more. I'm going to try to make it to all of them this year.
Man, that is ambitious.
It is. It's going to be very expensive and a lot of time. And Texas Linux Fest and Linux Fest Northwest are very close together. You know how that is? Like, you get one and you just want to, like, crash, right? But now you're going to be picking right up and going to the next one.
Oh, man.
Maybe I should start, like, a nice Coke habit or something. You know, just for the spring.
Just for conference season. Like, you'll quit.
Go ahead. No, finish it.
No, go ahead. You'll quit after Easter. It'll be fine.
Alderon.games/coder. Yep, they're hiring. What do you don't want a sweet remote gig? What? You're too good for a sweet remote gig? Alderon.games/coder. Well, since this is one of our last episodes of the year, I thought maybe we'd chat a little bit about how our work has changed over the year and our workflow changes. We're going to dive deep into some Unreal stuff in the next episode that Mr. Dominic has been flopping around in like a pig in the slop. But going from more high level for this episode, I thought maybe we'd just chat. And I got a couple things I want to throw your way that I've kind of become a bigger believer in this year, and see if you think I'm just full of crap or if maybe I'm onto something. So prepare yourself for I'll be I guess subject to your judgment.
Oh no.
I think the biggest thing for me, just from a real practical standpoint this year, is we parked Linux Action News because the ad market started to collapse, and Linux Action News is very time intensive to produce, and also requires editing and post-production, so it requires an editor and all of that. And it had its own dedicated editor at that, so it meant that if we paused Linux Action News, I'd get about a day and a half, 2 days back a week, and we would have one less editor, which wasn't a great, I don't like having a single editor, but thankfully Drew has like the shoulders of probably Hercules and maybe He-Man put together. Like maybe he was He-Man and Hercules' dad. And so he can hold a large weight, but you know, you don't want to overload a person. So it sort of, when you have an opportunity to kind of shut down something like that, that's like a notable savings, especially since there was no sponsor for it.
Right.
We took that move. And it meant, you know, now I get about a day and a half off a week. And I'm not sure if that was nice because it gave me more spacing between the shows too. And I don't know if I'm getting old and I don't have the stamina that I used to have, or maybe I'm just more aware of like, you know, you need more time to do these shows right. You need to have energy. I don't know what's shifted, but I started really kind of burning out, and just taking one show out of that rotation kind of just gave me a little bit more buffer, you know, closer to that work-life balance. And then we moved office hours to Bounty only, so it's on a slower production. And then, you know, operating a little leaner, living a little leaner. It meant that we had to spin down a couple of Sugar Daddy projects. Like, we haven't been producing any of the extras, so there's been no brunch with Brent or anything like that. But it's because a lot of that stuff we just paid for out of pocket from revenue. There's no pocket to pay out of, so the show has to pay for itself. But it meant that this is the part that I want your take on. As I was sorting all this out and figuring out where do we cut, what do we keep, what can we afford to maybe like lose a little bit on for a bit while maybe members pick up the slack or something like that. It really meant measuring the right things. And I realized like the things that we kind of took a couple of ideas and theories and things to measure from what we learned at Linux Academy and at Cloud Guru, and just kept them rolling. And what I realized is the world had shifted and we weren't really getting the signal we needed. And I want to play a clip This is super buff Jeff Bezos. He was on Lex Friedman's most recent podcast as we record, so maybe a couple episodes ago. And you might want to go watch this on YouTube because holy crap.
The man is jacked.
You'll hear it just in his voice. Yeah. His voice sounds swole. Especially if you're familiar with, after listening to this episode of Coder Radio, you should go listen to like Bezos from the 90s. It's a totally different person.
It's a totally different dude, yeah.
However, his observation in this clip, this is about a 2-minute clip, completely lines up with what my observation was this year. So you tell me what you think.
One of the things that happens in business, probably anything that you have an ongoing program and something is underway for a number of years, is you develop certain things that you're managing to. Like, let's say the typical case would be a metric. And that metric isn't the real underlying thing. And so, maybe the metric is efficiency metric around customer contacts per unit sold or something. Like if you sell 1 million units, how many customer contacts do you get? Or how many returns do you get? And so on and so on. And so what happens is a little bit of a kind of inertia sets in where somebody a long time ago invented that metric. And they invented that metric. They decided we need to watch for, customer returns per unit sold as an important metric. But they had a reason why they chose that metric, the person who invented that metric and decided it was worth watching. And then fast forward 5 years, that metric is the proxy.
Mm-hmm. The proxy for truth, I guess.
The proxy for truth, the proxy for customer, let's say in this case, it's a proxy for customer happiness.
Yeah.
But that metric is not actually customer happiness. It's a proxy for customer happiness. The person who invented the metric understood that connection. 5 years later, a kind of inertia can set in, and you forget the truth behind why you were watching that metric in the first place. And the world shifts a little.
Yeah.
And now that proxy isn't as valuable as it used to be, or it's missing something. And you have to be on alert for that. You have to know, okay, I don't really care about this metric. I care about customer happiness. And this metric is worth putting energy into and following and improving and scrutinizing only in so much as it actually affects customer happiness. And so you got to constantly be on guard. And it's very, very common. This is a nuanced problem. It's very common, especially in large companies, that they are managing to metrics that they don't really understand. They don't really know why they exist. And the world may have shifted out from under them a little. And the metrics are no longer as relevant as they were when somebody 10 years earlier invented the metric.
I mean, he shifts the analogy in there a little bit. But I think the core idea that resonated with me is maybe the person that creates that metric that they put on a dashboard or whatever it is that they're going to monitor, they understand what it's a proxy for. But then at some point that association gets lost. Like as it enters the group mind or that person moves on or whatever it is, that association, and then all it is we talk about the metric. The conversation's always about the metric and the results of the metric. Did we hit the metric? How far below are we from what we decided the core target metric was? Right? And it just, I think it can be slow death, even for a small company, because it's easy. In fact, it's simpler to just kind of develop, well, these are the things that I'm going to watch as a business. And as long as these numbers are okay, we're doing fine. But that doesn't actually reveal what's coming down the road, like which has happened to our friends at Twit, where they've just been completely blindsided and had to lay off 3 of some of their absolute best staff. And Leo says they're over 1 million in the hole for next year, and he just doesn't understand what happened.
It reminds me, and it's weird that I make this analogy when listening to the smallest CEO in the Valley, but it reminds me of World of Warcraft, right? Like the way that they kept people playing for a long time was just to give you more little colored bars to fill. And in the beginning, like it made sense, right? You got to level up to do dungeons or raids, or some of them are like you level up to get like a new mount or gear with like a certain faction. But then at some point it just becomes you're filling the bar because you're like the crack addicted mouse just hitting the button over and over and over again. And you're just filling the bar to fill the bar, just like you're just hitting the metric to hit the metric. I'm curious, do you have a metric that has led you astray in the past?
Well, so with the reduction in ad revenue, we've focused more on memberships and direct boosts, and I think there's an analogy here for software development too. Well, that's a totally different metric. There's a totally different set of metrics there to monitor. Like for example, office hours. Office hours is our lowest downloaded show on the network by a mile. And it's now at the point where during, when ads are doing good, sponsors would buy that. But now nobody wants to touch it. It's got no marketing angle. It's not really meant for like a great demo. It's really just a show that's built for the Jupiter Broadcasting audience. So it's a sort of self-referential show. And it just economically, in an advertising-based business, made no sense. And so the metrics were telling me we have to end this show. And especially with costs, being high as inflation's gone up and then revenue going down at the same time. So it's like a double whammy.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, it's it's weird because on the software side, I've seen all kinds of crazy managers implement crazy metrics. I think I've told the story before. Like years ago, there was this dude who was like really interested in the number of just raw commits in Git.
Yeah.
Now, what the problem with that is,
well, now I know how hard people are working.
Well, the developers get wise, though, right? Like each file's its own commit.
They're the first group to figure this kind of stuff out.
Right. And it's like, okay. And then remember, and this is going back even before my time, but KLOCs, 1,000 line of code blocks, that was like a metric that all the consulting gurus were saying, oh, well, you got to see how much KLOC can your team put out. And it's like, well, actually, if we do the same feature in less, and this is something that Ballmer himself bitched about in Robert Cringely's documentary. He's like, we wrote a faster version of what IBM wanted, and they wanted to pay us less because it was less lines of code. Which, you got to give it to Ballmer on that one. For whatever you think of him, right? Because he can be a buffoon sometimes. He gets it. He gets that less code is generally better. But the folks over the suits at IBM are like, no, we pay you by the line. You make less money, even though you exceeded our specs. And it wasn't like that they asked for more money. It was they were supposed to be paid a certain amount of money. They got it done faster for less code. And IBM was like, well, that's great. So we're going to discount it by 20% or whatever because it's 20% less code, which is just an asinine way to look at things. But, I have a metric that a couple of years ago used to really screw me up on the biz dev side. Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
And I share this metric issue with a former president and a guy who launches rockets and builds electric cars. Twitter engagement. I always felt that Twitter engagement would lead to more lead generation.
Okay.
And it never did.
Okay.
Ever.
Okay.
There was no, at least for my usage, absolutely no correlation between engagement and developing the business. Further, the top, because I had I forgot the name of the product, but I had a whole system set up, and I was the most engaging tweets were always the stupid ones you shouldn't send at 2 a.m. to Kara Swisher, right? Because you're annoyed at that. I think my most well-performing tweet ever was the one where I was like, it's a little weird that Recode, because Recode was its own thing at the time, doesn't take a harder look at Theranos. Now, the fact that I ended up being right didn't help, right? Because that just got blasted for oh, you just don't like it because insert slander here. Followed closely by a bunch of memes I had made of Star Trek characters and coding jokes.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
No value, right?
Yeah.
Just no value.
You rarely see companies revisit these metrics. I think I think your social one is a fantastic example. I've been involved in multiple companies, multiple groups. I've been in the Zoom calls, and there'll always be a conversation around the social stuff. And I've never, ever, ever, ever heard anyone ask what's the value of it. I've never heard that.
Which is insane, right? Because if you get a booth at a trade show or even just attend a trade show, you're like, okay, if you get a booth, forget it. You're talking $10,000. But let's just say you just attend. Okay, I spent $800 on flights. 1,000 for, hotel plus tickets, blah, blah, blah. And, these are pretty low numbers. I'm probably sandbagging myself here. Okay, well, what kind of contacts did I make for either partnership opportunities or actual just, sales, right? Actual leads. And then you just wait 6 months or whatever you think your sales cycle is and say, did insert show here make sense for me? And I can tell you that is a pretty easy calculation to do. If you ignore the whole "did I have fun" at the trade show thing, right? And it's just something people don't do with social media. But if you think about it, you got to think about the cost of your time.
Sure.
You got to think about, okay, are you now it's a little easier, right? Because you could use DALL-E or ChatGPT to generate your memes. Although I tried to make it generate a Swole Bezos and it wouldn't do it, so that's interesting. Because you can't use names of public figures. It said
interesting.
Yeah,
sure, of course.
A lot of these companies have representatives or social media managers that they're paying on staff to do this kind of thing, and it just gets
it's expensive.
Right. It just starts to snowball into, but look, my follower count went up, or look at how juicy and thick my notifications are in my Twitter app. When it's okay, but I don't even know. Think of a shitty Twitter username, right? Yuji Naka's best friend 472. Yuji Naka's the Sega game designer who I think went to jail. Did he become a customer, or is that just some guy who thought it was funny that you posted a picture of Darth Maul with an Objective-C joke?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think the problem is that if you were to sit down with somebody who's a quote-unquote business expert, they'd absolutely tell you need to have a social media presence, you need to have your brand out there, be part of the conversation, and be engaging. They would have absolutely told me, you got to... Well, we did. We looked at, we reviewed it, we shut down office hours because we just couldn't make it viable going by the metrics. And then kind of in the middle of the night, we had the idea, well, what if we could switch it to a bounty system? And since we shut down office hours and our metric is now the boost, we've produced six releases, either pocket or full episodes of office hours that have just been completely financed by the boost. Even though the show only gets 4,000 or 5,000 downloads, in that situation, if it were a situation where the boost could be large enough where they could replace sponsors, then all of a sudden you're measuring a new set of metrics, and that's a different kind of engagement you're measuring, and not so much the downloads, which also means smaller independent podcasts can be more viable. I also think it means smaller independent software projects could be more viable, because if we're looking at something like office hours, just to talk numbers here for a second, if we're looking at something like office hours, it gets somewhere between 2,000 and 5,000 downloads, which is not monetizationable by traditional standards. It needs to usually be around 10,000 or more. And we're able to produce somewhere around $400-500 per episode. Well, it covers our cost barely. We don't make any profit on there, but that covers the cost, and that's a tiny show. Now, is it unreasonable the software project could have 2,000 to 5,000 users? Yeah, I don't think so. I think there is something about it. It's just different metrics to measure. And there isn't some business expert or somebody who's been doing this for a long time that's going to advise you how to do it. Because I think we're entering into an era of the old school way of thinking about things and measuring things just doesn't work. I think the territory for the last 2 years has been shifting underneath us. And I think it's going to shift considerably in 2024. I'm not sure which direction, but I think it's going to be shifting a lot. And I think a lot of the old school thinking and way of measuring things is just not going to work. And I think we're already seeing the results of it already. But my thought is we're not going back to normal. We're not going back to the place where those things worked and everybody was making enough money where it didn't really matter if they didn't. I think those times are over. So I think you really have to be careful how you measure, what your metrics are, and then validate them. And not to be cliche about it, but ask yourself what the hell you're actually measuring. And the bigger you are as a group, probably the further away you are from the real thing.
Right.
It's even more of a challenge. But that's your burden. You've got to solve that, or you're going to die long term. Tailscale.com/coder. 100 devices? Yep. 100 devices for free, and you support the show. It's a great service. Tailscale.com/coder. Well, well, well. Go figure, just as we wrap up our pre-record for the holidays, a big announcement, like literally just as we wrap it up, a big announcement that Epic won its battle against Google. I got, yes, another clip for you, just so that way we can, this was as we record a little bit ago, that way we're all up on the deets, and then we'll come back and kind of discuss what this means.
Good morning. So for years, the tech giants, they have argued that their App Store rules and restrictions, they exist simply to benefit customers. This ruling chips away at that argument and challenges the idea of Google and Apple as gatekeepers. Epic CEO Tim Sweeney, he posted, "Victory over Google, free Fortnite." And the ruling quickly became a sort of rallying cry for others interested in cracking this duopoly. And Neil Dash, CEO of Glitch, writing on Threads, "The app stores are cracking open. We're about to see the biggest reshuffling of power on the internet in 20 years. Meanwhile, the American Economic Liberties Project posting, "The ruling's a big deal. The jury was readily able to call a spade a spade." And then there was Luther Lowe. He is a longtime critic of Google with Yelp and now leading public policy for Y Combinator. He posted, "Both major Google antitrust cases this year put as much spotlight on Apple's bad behavior as they did Google. Apple," he says, "is next over the barrel."
I don't know how much Apple's going to be over the barrel or how much Google's really going to be hurting over this, but it still feels like a monumental decision to me. What is your reaction now that we've had a couple of days to cook on it?
So, okay. This is where we get some feedback. I think Epic, is probably going to lose on appeal.
Ooh, okay. All right. Here we go. Now, can I ask you why you feel this way?
Well, because as shady as Google's, apparently standard operating procedure of deleting all their chat logs.
Apparently, but not enough. They didn't delete enough.
They didn't delete enough. They forgot to put the star in that RMTAC-R command. And, some of the, just bluntness of the emails that were uncovered, it doesn't change the basic fact of, this is how business deals are done, right?
Generally.
So
in the past, especially.
I mean, is it obnoxious that Google likes to go out and say, we treat our developers fairly, and they obviously don't?
Yeah, but Walmart probably goes out and says something similar about the businesses they distribute products
That's
for.
exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
But doesn't every storefront, do something similar to this?
I guess really egg on our faces for actually ever buying a minute of it, potentially.
Right. And it's also if Apple, right? So if taking this ruling and I listened to the analysis by lawyers, there's quite a few kind of respectful legal commentators who are this is a weird ruling. And part of it is because this was a jury trial. And do you trust 12 random people in your district? I don't. If I was Google, I would have wanted a bench trial. Because juries are I don't mean to slag off the jury here, but I could see that Google sounding like a big dick kind of influences 12 regular people more than it might influence a judge who's but oh well, right? I don't know. I feel like there's not a whole lot to say about this because it seems to me that Google basically lost because they had a bunch of embarrassing emails. They somehow failed to get a bench trial, which I heard on a different show that it might have been a mistake. They just forgot to file the form or something. And, so think about this, right? The idea that Walmart can't sell their Great Value brand next to, Barilla pasta and favor Great Value is stupid. So Google can favor Spotify. Well, because Spotify has leverage. Spotify, if you're not on iOS, is the #1 music app in the damn world.
I mean, you could argue it shouldn't be this way.
Yeah, but then we have to go back and you have to write a new law.
Well, and you're also dealing with how it should be versus how it actually is.
Right. I mean, I got to be honest with you. So tying the things to the Google libraries and Google payments. Well, we have years of footage or of audio of you and I bemoaning Google's lack of strong arming of the OEMs. I want to, if anything, I wanted like more damning emails to come out. Like, I wanted to see one where they like brought Samsung to heel, right? I don't know. I'm thinking, like, of course, I was a big Motorola fan. I thought like Google just give up on OEMs, do it Apple style, because I remember doing
it was
Android
rough.
development.
It was
rough.
It's still not great.
Yeah, so I don't know. None of this seems like heinous to me. And if Google used to say don't be evil all the time. And spoiler alert, they're all evil.
Yeah.
Right?
So why did Epic win its case against Googs and not Apple? Well, of course, they had a lot more smoking guns against Google in terms of documentation. Also, Apple has been arrogantly, stubbornly consistent, and Apple, the documents that did leak essentially were just reflections of outward statements. And whereas Google, had secret private deals and said separately, publicly.
Well, but you can see in some of the emails here, right? A lot of the secret private deal crap was originally, there was always we need our 30% revenue, holy crap. And that's but that's on Apple too. But a lot of it was trying to rein the damn OEMs in to actually use. How many hours have we spent talking about Google Play services when it was new, and how, I would come on here and just for 2-3 years recommend people don't use whatever stupid built-in API in your app. Use the Play services libraries because they at least get updated independently from the Android OS version. And that's one of the things that Google had to strong arm the OEMs into taking, was those libraries, which, I think it's hard to argue that Play services didn't make the Android ecosystem more secure, frankly better, and make third-party developers able to provide more consistent app experiences.
Yeah.
So so sure, Spotify basically played a hard role on them, and so did the video game companies. Well, that's what they all do. Have you heard? Bobby Kotick was a person, or is alive still, but he's just gone. But he is a person, right? That made his whole career playing hard roles. Every good old beautiful chess terror Craig Federighi, his emails are pretty damn bare knuckle too. These guys who they want to at Apple, they want to seem like they're a throwback to 60s counterculture or woke values or whatever. Or Google's we're just fun nerds. Bullshit. They're bare knuckle boxing, hard nosed businessmen. They're not doing a charity here, and it just on its face, let's say we own Mike and Chris's Deli.
Oh, delicious.
And we want to sell lemonade because I love lemonade. Okay. Country Time Lemonade and Minute Maid Lemonade comes to us. Country Time says, here's the deal. We're the same price as Minute Maid, but we're the same retail price, and you have to keep our retail price, right? But we're only going to charge you $2 for a case, where the other guys are charging you the full $3. You and I would both put that Country Time Lemonade right in there, because that's just how business is done.
Yep.
Right? Even if a condition of the deal is you can't carry any Minute
Put the logo on the door. Put the logo on the door. Happy.
To me, it's just I don't know. This isn't a more horrible thing would be Google intentionally, putting stuff in the OS to screw with Fortnite, right? To break it or something. That would be okay, that's bad. That should be stopped. And the deleting of chat messages,
which Apple did more of, which is another reason why they didn't, I think, lose their case, which is, what does that tell you?
Yeah, well, there's a lot, I think, that Google's lawyers are going to appeal here. Now, my sympathies are totally with Epic.
Yeah, right.
I
follow
to me,
you.
the Apple case is actually the more heinous.
This is what I like about all these cases, though, is I'm not ever really clear on what the outcome's going to be. And even once you have an outcome, it's not really clear what the impact will actually be and how it gets implemented and, what little loopholes actually exist. We don't really ever know until it's been years. But what we do get, and we get it immediately, at least on the scale of things, is all of these leaks and details that always harken back to topics on the show that come back up on the show again. And it's one of my favorite things like that we do, because we have conversations about these things when they're happening and we cover them. And then years later, the court cases happen. And then like all these leaks always come out, and they always make these companies look so bad that it's like, oh, right, we're cynical because we've been doing this for a while and we keep seeing this happen over and over again.
But this is not a new thing, right? Babbage's, EB Games, Best Buy, GameStop, and what was it, Software, etc. used to do, those are all basically PC game retailers from the 90s, all did the same damn thing. Whichever game publishers gave them the best spiff or kickback, they would feature their products. And they went for productivity software too. So again, not new, sorry. But like, it's just not new.
I know,
right?
I know. We'll see where it goes. We'll see if Google does appeal and what their argument's going to be. I'll keep an eye on. If anything interesting does develop as the year goes on next year, we'll cover it. Shout out to, I think it was Team Linux in our Matrix chat. The FX Pack Pro was what I was trying to refer to. This is actually a little nicer than mine. This is a $224 one, but it has a couple of nice hardware upgrades that can really make the music sing in some of the games and whatnot. This is a Super Nintendo cartridge that you put an SD card in, load it up with ROMs, up to 200 gigs worth, and it's got a menu system and everything, and you can play in full hardware with a regular Super Nintendo hooked up to a CRT display. You can have all your ROMs on this thing and play them on hardware with the original controller and everything. It's pretty neat. Honestly, they ought to be a sponsor. Although they're probably, I don't know if they're making much money. Because now I know how hard it is to ship products, and this is a pretty sophisticated piece of hardware.
And once Nintendo finds out about them.
Yeah, well, maybe we shouldn't have said anything, but I wanted to follow up on it since I mentioned it in a recent episode. It's so cool.
It is.
Really is. Also, you know what else is cool? You know what else? Members. CoderQA.co if you'd like to support the show directly and help keep independent podcasting weird. I think this is a super important medium in general, podcasting. And, you know, we've been here doing this for a long time. And we will take that responsibility seriously if you become a member at CoderQA.co. You get an ad-free version of the show. Truthfully, that might not be a big perk in the future. But you know what? You will get the Coderlies when two old men can get the kids to leave them alone. We can sit down in an evening and get a couple drinks in us and record a Coderly. We'll put one out for our members in the new year, I imagine. And you can get access to those and all the previous ones we've ever done. There's a bank of them now at CoderQA.co. And you can support all the shows at Jupiter.party if that's your bag. Might be. You can do gift memberships too. I don't know. Maybe you send a link to somebody and say, hey, you want to get me something? Get me this. That could be a thing. I guess. Somebody might do it.
Ask not what your podcast can boost for you, but what you can boost for your podcast.
Rotted Mood supported the podcast as our baller booster with 50,000 sats. No message, just the support. And we support it, Mr. Mood. Or we support your support. Something like that, and appreciate it too. Mick Zip, though, coming in right there. Also in the baller section with 25,000 sats. Mr. ZP writes, love me some Sonic and Knuckles. So this is my Genesis is 30 years old. Whoa. At this point, my Genesis, he says, is 30 years old, and it still works. He has it hooked up to Channel 3.
That's right.
Yeah, Channel 3, yeah. Yeah, you got nothing else on there, right? That's great. Thank you, Mr. ZP. We appreciate it. VT25 comes in with a row of ducks. Oh, look at him go. Using the Podverse. He says, I got to take on the whole beeper thing. You're right, of course, that iMessage is Apple's platform to do with as they wish. Well, I don't find their actions the least bit surprising. I do think it's pretty ironic that they're now in the position of having to protect their dominance against scrappy startups looking for an interop play. Sort of like Apple's iWork supporting MS Office files back in the day. You know what, I'll add also, when iMessage or whatever it was called on the Mac first launched, in order to gain popularity, they also supported the AOL Instant Messenger Protocol and I think XMPP as well. So what do you think? He's right in a way, right? VT is here. Apple has been in the underdog position before where they have tried to, through their own innovation, build in some sort of compatibility so that way they could play in the market as well.
Yeah, but, again, they're not going to do that.
Well, there's that. There is that. Also, it feels maybe a little bit different in this case because it's not like iMessage is an operating system or something that's, iMessage is a component of Apple's services, and Beeper doesn't need to be in that business. So it's not like, Beeper's like this up and coming computer company that's trying to fight a monopoly with a desktop and office monopoly. It's more like there's two giant monopolies out there already, Google and Apple, and they already have their own messaging monopolies. And then there's like all the rest, all the leftovers go to the WhatsApp and the Signals and the Telegrams, and Beeper's coming in and being like, well, we also want to make revenue doing this, so what can we do to differentiate? And they identified this. I don't know if I equate that, though, to the same struggle. It's because it's like a services thing, I don't know. I am kind of open to the idea. I just think I have to think about it more.
Yeah, I mean, Beeper recognized the hole in the market, right, and they're taking advantage. Who knows what's going to happen with Apple now going to RCS and just the, Nazgul level lawyers they have over there. It seems like this is a... I was listening to The Verge, and Nilay Patel was saying he doesn't think that Apple necessarily wants to crush Beeper with their, Sith army of lawyers. That is a very charitable view. I'm going to go with they definitely will.
Okay. All right. Ryan comes in to confirm that I did get his location right.
This is the way.
He's down there in Brisbane.
I am programmed in multiple techniques.
And he says also, here's another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sats, just because.
So the combination is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the stupidest combination I ever heard in my life.
Panic Ketchup comes in with 19,000 sats. By the way, thank you, Ryan. And he says, go podcasting. That's it. Just a go podcasting.
Go Gadget Podcast.
Jin from Matique comes in with 6,000 sats. He says, hi, Chris and Mike. I heard about your woes with browsers. I've been using Firefox, and it happened to me, and I lost all my tabs. To fix this, I installed Tab Session Manager. When I was listening to Brave recommendations on the show, I was screaming, no! Here, please read my following post on Stacker News. Brave has lost all credibility many times over. Its marketing is pure lies. If I'm wrong, let me know. I'm open to critics. He says, some years ago, after the developers left Opera and started Vivaldi, I switched to that. I heard they were not able to improve it enough, and so the doers, so I guess someone involved, started a new browser with the same spirit of innovation Opera brought more than 2 decades ago. I love Vivaldi. It has many great features. I hope you'll give it a try. All right. I have been getting a lot of recommendations for Vivaldi. I think my concern there is all my Chromium-based browsers seem to basically be suffering from the same issues. But perhaps I'll unwrap a Vivaldi present under the Christmas tree this year and give it a shot. Thank you, Jen. I did read your post, and I put a link to it in the show notes, too. Sometimes I just kind of miss Safari. I don't like Safari a lot, but when I do use it, I'm like, man, this is a clean, lean, mean browser. It really is.
It is.
And then I use it for a few minutes, and I'm like, and I also would like some extensions, and it just is too limited for me.
See, you just have to let go. Surrender your will to the iCollective.
I will also load Tab Session Manager. It doesn't really solve the crashing, but at least makes the recovery better. Thank you, everybody who supports each production. Really appreciate it. This is a really important metric to us these days. We had 6 total unique boosters across 8 boosts, and we stacked 119,073 sats. If you'd like to boost in, please do. Our next episode will be a pre-record, so they won't be featured in that episode. But we'll be right back in the New Year's, and of course, we'll be getting to all those boosts. You can do it in a couple of ways. There's some really great new podcast apps out there at podcastapps.com. Fountain 1.0 is just around the corner, and it is a barn burner. Podverse goes from strength to strength, and it's GPL and cross-platform. And it's also on the web, which is really nice. There's a whole bunch of apps, though. More all the time at podcastapps.com. But if you're not interested in switching apps, one of the easiest ways is to use the Strike app or the Cash app. Strike's now available in 36 countries. I love the Cash app. I pay some utilities with the Cash. I mean, I love the Cash app. And you can just go to the Fountain FM website now and boost just by scanning the QR code, put a little message in their web form and send it in to us, and you don't gotta worry about Albi or podcast apps or nothing. If you got Strike or Cash, you can scan a QR code you can support the show with a message. And you don't even have to hold the sats. It'll just Strike, for example, just does it all in your local currency. The back end's over the Lightning Network, but you never have to really bother with it. It's pretty slick, actually. And it's a nice way to get your message in, too. We'll have links in the show notes. We also have some special outro music this week, the Top Hats Orchestra, which we'll be sending a nice boost to, and you can as well. We'll put a link to LN Beats. Some great Christmas music that's just a little bit spicier and different. We'll have that in the show notes. Mr. Dominic, is there anywhere you want to send the good people before we get out of here?
Go to alice.dev for all your, data manipulation needs.
I got to say, looking back at the year, you were way ahead with all this stuff. I mean, what you're doing now is like what everybody's trying to do through ChatGPT and all of that, right? Like it's you got to pat yourself on the back there. You called that one.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Now here we are. Now if people just need, people want the product from the OG, the man who's thinking 5 steps ahead. Alice.dev's where they got to go. You can find the show on Weapon X, Coder Radio Show. Probably the benefit there, you find out about releases. You can follow me at ChrisLAS. I tweet when we go live. Links, lots of links to what we talked about at coder.show/550. Which, by the way, over there you'll also find our subscribe, RSS links to whichever you want and whatnots, including just the raw RSS feed. You'll also find our contact form. Happy holidays, everybody. Thank you so much for joining, sharing the show if you do so. We hope you have a great holiday. Now, we won't have a live show next week. That's, of course, over at JupiterBroadcasting.com/calendar when we do. But we will indeed have a release for you in the RSS feed. Mr. Dominic, happy holidays to you and the family.
Happy holidays.
Thank you, sir. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's Coder Radio. See you next week. Thank you, Drew. All right. We are going to be taking a break. We got to get everybody to go boat there in the titles. If you see one you like, please go vote for it. It needs your support over there because I don't got any like in the kitty. It's all on you. I did put during the show, I put in Buff Jeff is wise, which I thought, not bad.
No, it's not bad.
Not bad. Yeah. Metrics burn the house down. Not bad because of the metric system. Definitely troll our friends across the pond. I'm going to render this out. Uh-huh. Energize. Buff Jeff has 2 votes. What about like something like Buff Uncle Jeff?
I like it.
Buff Uncle Jeff?
Buff Uncle Jeff.
All right, we'll do that. All right, we got ourselves a title at least. That's something. All right, you want to take 5? You good? I mean,
I'm good to go. If
okay,
you're good to go.
I got to refresh my Wooter.
Okay.
So I will run and do that. I'll just be a minute, so I won't be long. Be right back.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I need to start the title bot too for the next show, because we gotta do it all over again. Right. Let me do that real quick too. If you're watching on the commercial streams and you're just joining us, we're setting up for our second Coder Radio of the day, episode 551. And man, we'd sure love it if you helped us title. Coder.show/matrix for that. All right. TitleBot has been started. And like that, we're ready. How about that? Time to the music even. Yes.
It's the time of the season.
It's beginning to look a lot like Podmas. So when we come back, our next episode will be, the 8th. That's when we're going to get together again.
That's right.
Wow. That's some wacky, wild stuff. That's a big one. We've been lucky the last few years in the sense that the show hasn't really hit the holidays too hard. Like last year, I think we got pretty lucky, but whoo.
Oh, this year. Hopefully they don't fire and rehire Sam Altman 15 times.
Right. Well, during our break, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, chat room. Here we go again. Hitting record. Hello, Space Drew. Mr. Dominic, please jump in at 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
4.
All right, here we go. I think the chat room died. You see that? There's like nobody in there now. We are so. All right, Coder Radio. Here we go. It's Coder time. So this is for January 1st, isn't it? Actually, it's for release on the 3rd, so I'll say January 3rd. Wow, that's way out there.
It's a long time away.
This is Coder Radio, episode 551 for like the future. I don't remember what the date was. What was the date? I forgot.
January 3rd, 2024.
All right, thank you. Wow, it's the first time I'll be saying 2024 in an official capacity. Woo, I just got butterflies. All right, here we go. 3rd, really? It just feels so far away. It just doesn't seem possible. It is true, though.
It is true.
All right. Rotted Mood's in there. You got to bang suggest. Okay, CB's still there. Thank you. You're just not able to chat much. We'll bang suggest for you first, for God's sakes. All right, here we go. 3, 2. This is Coder Radio, episode 551 for January 3rd, 2024. Well, hey there. Welcome on in to Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and the business of software development and the world of technology. Still cleaning this place up from the holiday parties, my name is Chris, and joining us every single week, it's our host, Mr. Dominic. Hello, Mike.
Me so happy to be back in 2024.
Oh, no. I thought we had the contract expire in 2023 for this guy.
Misa got great union manager.
Jeez. I don't understand how you can keep getting jobs, but the rest of us, oh my goodness. Jar Jar, can you get Mike on? We got a show to do. I can't believe
Jar Jar, go back in your cage. It's okay.
It's just started the year off with the wrong foot on that one. Tell you what. That's how, this, right, what just happened, that right there, what's it called? It's not a gopher. What is it? What is it where it goes back and if it sees its shadow? What is that?
Groundhog.
Yeah, I'll kill him. That right there is our groundhog having its shadow moment. Although for us, it's Jar Jar. When Jar Jar comes on the show, that means you're going to have 6 more months of a wild economy that's going to just be crazy for the show. That's what yeah. I just think it's true. Like, it's going to be, I'm looking at it right now. It's going to be a wild year. And I think that was our sign.
I feel like you can't blame Jar Jar for that one. He's made some mistakes, but I don't know, man. Really?
I think it's not that it's Jar Jar's fault. It's that it's sort of like the sign. It's like why it's not necessarily the groundhog's fault that winter is longer, and yet seems to be the way things work. Okay, so just here's what I'm going on about. All right, I just got 4 top hits for you as we enter the new year right now. Apple is halting sales of its Watch S9 and Ultra 2 in the U.S. Because a presidential review period is in progress because there's a patent dispute over the blood oxygen sensor, and they had to basically start this process during the holiday season. I'm sure Apple pushed as far as they could. Adobe, just before Christmas, had to announce they were giving up on their $20 billion acquisition of Figma because the EU and the UK regulatory bodies just would not approve it. They were just blocking it. U.S. senators have made calls to investigate Apple over the whole Beeper Mini situation, and they have sent a letter to the DOJ asking the law enforcement body to investigate whether Apple is potentially behaving in an anti-competitive way against Beeper, and if they're violating U.S. antitrust laws. And Weapon X, is being investigated, number 4, is being investigated by the EU over potential Digital Services Act violations, i.e., X is held accountable for harmful and illegal content that is on the platform, and they need to have transparent moderation algorithms out there for everybody to review. And all 4 of these that I just quick hit you with are all happening right here at the start of the year as things just begin to cook up.
It is the year of thoughtfulness, trust, and safety.
What a banger it's going to be.
What a banger. Now, one of those, I got to say, one of those things was not like the other, though, right?
Which one would that be?
I'm going to go with the Justice Department being asked to investigate the beeper thing. There's no there. I mean, it's
yeah.
Mostly because, like, we may have some spicy things to say about the EU, but they actually do, right? For instance, Apple's adopting RCS basically because of the EU. Apple adopted USB-C because of the EU.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you got to give it to them when it comes to forcing large corporations to do things that they would otherwise not want to do around interoperability. The EU does have some teeth, but Apple, I think, has done a pretty good Kakashi here by just adopting RCS to satisfy the EU. And I think the Justice Department is going to be very busy this year. I just have a feeling, and it's not going to be antitrust. Also, we should mention the batting average of Lina Khan and the other, regulatory folks trying to enforce antitrust in the States. Not good. Like they've not been winning super much. So
wouldn't it be interesting if all four of these, the companies won? And it's weird for me to be, well, I guess the Adobe one's already over, but it's weird for me to be in this position and be rooting for the big, rich corporation. Never in my life have I ever been in this position, but some of this feels like really kind of overreach stuff, like X being investigated by the EU for things that people post on there. And I know people go on there and they get their feelings hurt and they see misinformation or they see disturbing stuff and they get upset. But, I've been using Twitter since it was a cell phone thing and just over SMS. And in fact, technically I was using Twitter when it was a podcast platform before they decided to make
wasn't
it
it
Twitter.
called Odeo? Yeah.
I was using it then. And it's always been true since those very early days that Twitter very much has been what you make it. And it doesn't really matter if Jack is the CEO or Elon. At the end of the day, it's kind of just what you make of it. Now, there is obviously exceptions and edge cases to that. But at a whole, I find it kind of wild that we're going to really go down this path because this leads ultimately to the end of free speech on the web.
Yeah, I mean, it does. So I have some elephant and donkey bacon here.
Ooh, boy, that's some stinky stuff, dude. That is
some gamey meat. There is a little tiny, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's like a class election coming up, like at a local high school in November. I feel like if that election goes the way that I think it probably will go, a lot of these concerns and this kind of, to be honest, pearl clutching will subside. Now, if the elephant wins, then I can't even imagine what the response is going to be, right? Like it'll be total hair on fire panic. But I'm having, because I keep reading these like think pieces and like these op-eds in the Times and stuff about, this trust and safety, misinformation, blah, 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 blah. And some of them just explicitly come out with it, right? It's like it's about the election. So I don't know.
Well, okay, wait a minute. So your donkey bacon is that all of this AI pearl clutching is about the election ultimately, even in the EU,
even in the EU. I say a lot of it is about the election.
I like this. Okay, I mean,
so if Biden wins, they'll calm down, right? And if Trump wins,
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so. I grant you a lot of things that don't seem about Trump on their face do tend to be about politics and about Trump, and it's especially during an election year. So, you're not totally crazy. You might be right. But I feel like it's bigger than Trump. I feel like they're looking at this, and I wouldn't be surprised if Sam Altman went around and just kind of set the context. I think they're looking at this as it's the internet all over again. And that's why they keep talking about how it's going to disrupt jobs, and they keep talking about misinformation, because the internet disrupted jobs, and the internet has been a haven, as they would see it, for misinformation. And I think the way they look at it, because we have a lot of old folks that are still in charge, they're the same folks that were around when Al Gore invented the internet. And I think they're looking at it as we missed our opportunity to properly control this thing, like we do cable television, like we do satellite radio, like we do terrestrial radio. We missed our opportunity to properly monitor this thing. Not for malice, not for bad intentions, but because this is the role of the federal government. And, this is probably the same sentiment in other governments because they're all very self-important. And they look at the situation as, with AI, they look at the situation as another opportunity, another crack at that nut. And they have another chance to get it right this time and make sure that the safety and the information is great, just like they would for all other types of commerce that are happening in their little economies. And that's all their real concern. Now, I grant you, some of the folks in there are probably very much political actors, but I think this is just the generic inertia of government when they see a new technology like this come along and something that could have widespread influence and potential. They think this is our chance to get it right this time.
But what is right? I mean, you think about the tasks they're setting up for themselves. Every platform is going to have some department of improper thought or something like that, and regulate everything, my crazy liberal and my crazy conservative aunties post on Facebook, and decide, is that just like is it harassment if auntie, Democratic auntie's conservative auntie's a bad mom? Where does it stop? You're signing yourself up for an impossible task if you say you're going to do this.
And I think something that would to kind of underscore what you're saying is, and maybe this is where my analysis has just fallen short, is what isn't being abused by the current political party could be abused by a future political party.
Well, think about this. We get a hardcore kind of evangelical leaning government in there, and they're like, you know what? We don't like these things that we find socially unacceptable, right? So we've decided we're going to lay off the, crunchy anti-vax moms, and we're going to just lean into the things that are traditional. And we're going to make Facebook put, warnings and lower them in the algorithm. It feels like the worst game of tabletop tennis with people's opinions, when I have a little more faith in people to not be idiots.
Well, we always get pushback when we say that.
I know.
That always triggers folks. But here's here's a new argument. Here's a new take on it. Okay. We've all been watching YouTube now for a while, and we've seen how they've been auto-labeling disclaimers. My mom has a very adorable, small, little independent YouTube channel that she and her theater friends produce.
Adorbs.
And they do skits. And one of the skits talked about something to do with the weather. It was just a throwaway line in the skit. The YouTube bot labeled that as climate change misinformation and put a climate change disclaimer and demonetized her video, which is the only way this little theater group's going to make any revenue. Demonetized the video because there was a joke in there. It wasn't a skit about climate change. It wasn't even a anti-climate whatever. They weren't attacking climate justice. It was just something about the weather. But the thing can't really properly identify the context. And so it mislabels and punishes them. And honestly, they were all kind of demotivated by the entire thing. And there's nothing they can do about it.
There's no recourse, right? You're talking to a Python script.
Here's my new question. Okay, so most of the audience, I don't know where you feel, but when we talk about how we should just put everything out there and let people make up their own minds, take in the information and trust their intelligence, we always trigger people. So here's the new take on the question. Do you have more faith in your own human beings around you than you do these stupid Python scripts that have been screwing up for the last couple of years? Since the last election, we have had this on every video everywhere. We've had multiple platforms that are labeling content, and in my opinion, being on all of these, monitoring these very closely, watching the trends, the best one of the batch is Twitter. It's the community notes. That's the best context and best corrections and the most accurate out of all the systems out there. All the other ones get it wrong constantly. I just got an episode last week. I just got an episode of Linux Action Show flagged out of nowhere.
Really?
It's been up there for a decade, and it just got flagged for something because they've updated their scraper, and they went back and found a 13-year-old video of mine, and then wrote me a nasty email about it. It's stupid. And so my question is, do you have more faith in your fellow man and human being than you do these label systems and the people that run these that inevitably get corrupt? Because I just, like, where do you think this ultimately goes? It feels like we're having a conversation of idealism, like we should be able to have people that are trustworthy, that can review content, and can determine real truth and label things as such. That's that thing we should have. That'd be great to have. But we don't have that. What we have is political groups, political actors that pretend to be havens of truth and information, labeling things. And
Well,
so-
I mean, yeah.
I just like which system can you really trust in? One is organic and evolutionary and messy, and that's trusting in your fellow human, and one is always led by a group of people who are incentivized by whatever that gives. It's always, and the other is led by a group of people who are following incentives that do not align with what their actual job is supposed to be, and we see it over and over again. And my question is, okay, which system can you trust more? To me, it seems like let people have the information and sort it out themselves. Ultimately, there will be groups of people that come and sift through that information and become consensus makers. It just is what always happens. Or do you trust these systems that are powered by AI, these brand safety systems or whatever? It's just nuts to me.
Oh, it's also, we should probably leave this here.
Yeah,
I'll
you're
just
right.
ask the
Gets me all
rhetorical
worked
question.
up.
Yeah, I mentioned that it was stupid of Google to allow a jury trial last episode. Okay. Do you, listener who thinks that Chris and I are crazy, believe that a person should be tried by a jury? Because if you do, you are potentially trusting someone's life, their livelihood, their family. Really, you're giving 12 random people that happen to live in the same county massive amount of power over this person's life. And they could rule for all kinds of crazy reasons. They could vote any way they want, right? The judge's instructions are often not followed. And that's 12 randos. So I'm going to assume that most people listening to this are saying, well, of course, a jury are for peers. But you don't trust those same peers to go on Facebook and see like crazy aunts post and just say, oh, wow, she's being crazy again. I mean, it seems a little dumb. If you follow the logic of that, these misinformations or these potential biases and prejudices or whatever have to be controlled and people have to be protected from them online, then you have to basically redo fundamental parts of society with the premise that actually the average person cannot be trusted to make rational decisions.
I think you make a great point. And the question there is then, well, what about voting?
Yeah, that would be my next one, right? Like, and now you're just going to start talking about tests for voting, and you go to a very dark place,
right?
Once you decide that people cannot be trusted to hear something that might be stupid.
What you need a trust and safety board that reviews elections and determines which people are too dangerous to vote and which people are safe and allowed to vote, and then it's fine, right? It's fine. What's wrong with that? What could go wrong with that, Mike?
Yeah, I mean that's the problem, right? Like we're being a little absurd here, but if you think about it, the logical extension of the argument, and Chris points it out great, it's an absurd and frankly, it's a highly pessimistic argument. So
yes, well, I don't think we have a sponsor, but we always appreciate Boost, new podcast.
And if
apps.
we did, not anymore after that one,
right? You can become a member at coderqa.co. Yeah, community support's much appreciated right now. Welcome to the new year, everybody. So you spent a lot of last year, I imagine, getting, well, first, I suppose, reintroduced or introduced to the whole world of Unreal, and then immersing yourself, and then having to kit out and build out a workflow. I'm just curious how that's gone. I'd like to reflect on that with you. And I guess if you wouldn't mind, just telling me what it was like kind of getting back into that, switching from, like, I would imagine a completely different set of tooling, different operating systems. That must have been a switch.
It has been a journey. It continues to be a journey. It's, it was a lot tougher than I had anticipated. Maybe we should take a step out. Unreal, for folks who don't know, is a game engine. I imagine all of you know it by now, but that's fine. It's a game engine that makes like AAA big 3D games. I've been working on it to try to implement some things for the folks at Alderaan and iOS for Path of Titans. It is its own world.
Yeah, I bet.
It's kind of like, you say, oh, I'm doing iOS development. Let me just whip out some Objective-C here. It's like, well, actually, there's an Unreal way to do that. And, it's hard for me to describe the scope and the size of this engine. It's just gigantic. It covers everything from, iOS to the Nintendo Switch to Xbox, all of the Xboxes, right, to the PlayStations. It has, and this is a little spicy, I think it definitely has a Windows orientation to it, where like syntax highlighting I still can't get it working right on Xcode.
Well, that
for
doesn't
some
surprise
reason.
me at all. It's got to have been their primary customer base for a long time.
Right. So to the point, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, that I ended up buying a Dell tower to just kind of like, one of the big challenges of this is the code base that I'm working on is so huge. It was huge that the compile times were measured in some cases hours. And the development cycle that I'm very used to is kind of more of a, right? We used to talk about coding on a MacBook Air. I'm used to quick feedback loops. You build it, throw in some breakpoints, check out the local variables, watch, rinse, repeat until you come to glory. That is just not a viable development lifestyle in this, where you'll go days or weeks without actually getting anything done because, one, the build can fail for all kinds of weird, like esoteric reasons. You have to like cook the assets, which is just a thing Unreal does to make the graphics actually show up in the game and visible to the engine, which itself is another process that takes a long time. You really have to also adopt a mindset of, even though like you're supposed to be doing iOS development, you're really not. You're doing Unreal Dev, right, to just try to do things the Unreal way. Except there are still cases where Apple is a pain in the ass, especially around stuff like browsers and, entitlements.
It sounds like platform versus platform almost.
It almost is, right? And you do have to drop into the Objective-C, but you then have to be like extremely careful that you did not break, like throw in some Objective-C somewhere that you didn't cordon off with a pragma mark and break everybody else's build. So it's been tough. It's been also strange having to use beefy hardware, but I'm kind of in awe about how well designed the engine code base itself is and how it's worth it, I think, just to kind of like look at a few modules in Unreal and just read them and say, if you think about the scope of the problem they're trying to solve, right? They're trying to basically make an engine that's powerful enough to run on tier 1 consoles, but also port down to like Android phones. And they have done just a lot for that. If you're familiar with Unity, Unreal is less of a WYSIWYG kind of scene editor thing. It does have one, but you are writing C++ for the most part. You can write C#, but what I've been doing, it's been C++. So it feels much more like straight development than like doing a Unity project. They do have something called Blueprints, which is like a drag and drop kind of WYSIWYG thing. Other people could write it and tell us more about that. I haven't done anything with that. I've just been living in C++ Objective-C land. And damn, it is like just the idea of having to, like, I haven't had to compile something that took 3 hours in years before this.
I would also say the same, except for I've been using really old hardware recently. And some of the applications are not available for this hardware, so I have to build them from source. And yeah, man, I'm talking like all-night builds. It's real work. It's real work again. Yeah, it's web apps and mobile apps and stuff. That's just no sweat for modern hardware.
No sweat, right? Yeah. You could be playing music, watching a YouTube video at the same time. This is like, oh, so my MacBook is basically pegged. Great.
Yep.
Yeah, I would, if you're interested at all in game development or anything, it's worth it to like watch some YouTube tutorials. I mean, I am by no means an Unreal expert. I'm basically, doing the iOS patch and help stuff where I'm asked to. But the things that can be made in this engine, like somebody just made a Zelda movie in it, like a remake of. It's just super powerful.
Yeah, I'm also this remake thing seems to be big. These need to come to market. Yeah, somebody remade the Ocarina of Time, and it looks incredible. And they did it sort of with a cel-shaded look. It looks amazing. Somebody also remade Red Dead Redemption with the Unreal Engine 5. It's fan creation, but it's just absolutely stunning. This is a thing, honestly. You could take some classic games that people love, remaster them with Unreal Engine 5, and buy them. People would buy them again. I'd do it. Yeah, I think it's so impressive too how they've. I mean, you're talking in the gaming context, but there's this whole Hollywood context.
Oh yeah.
You know, like you and I, we harp on Discovery, but those live video walls that they use for like their different scenes and whatnot, or Strange New Worlds does this too, right? With the engineering set and others. That's unreal. And it's real. I mean, it's unreal, and it's really there in the room on those big giant walls. And they're rendering those in real time with animation and the smoke and, like, in the case of Strange New Worlds, the pulse of the, engines and all of that. That's all being done in real time with Unreal. And when the camera moves, the background re-renders in real time to make the perspective right. It's incredible what they're doing now, where it's gotten so good and it looks so accurate. Hollywood's using it now for real-time set creation. It is its own thing. So it's no wonder that it's a massive beast. We should get to the hardware, actually.
You should get to the hardware. I just one more thing.
Yeah.
It's also very humbling to actually work on something where I basically was like I like no Unreal knowledge, basically, right? So having to like make all the dumb newbie mistakes, not just like walking in and writing yet another giant Python application or an Objective-C app, was a humbling experience.
So I knew this was coming because I'd seen some screenshots. I think you'd made a couple teases on air. I knew you were going to be getting a beast, and it didn't sit right with me, but I knew you were also getting it to run Windows. I know you were really seriously considering Thalio and then putting Windows 11 on the Thalio, but it sounds like you didn't go that direction.
I didn't go that direction because I was actually able to take advantage of a Black Friday season deal at Dell. That was just, frankly, an offer I couldn't refuse. It was just, the price was too good.
Is the price I'm seeing on the page the price you paid?
No, that's the base model. That is not the price I paid. I paid, I think it was a little under $5,000.
This thing is a hell of a machine. The Precision 7865 from Dell, Ryzen Threadripper, Radeon graphics, and then I'm guessing you just sort of upped everything.
I just upped everything, right? That was, yeah. You could buy this machine for under $2,000.
Yeah.
If you didn't go crazy with it. But no, I mean the big thing I needed was the Threadripper, because that you just looking at my poor MacBook Pro with this just puny M1 Max. I mean, come on. How sad that is. It was the CPU that was almost 100% of my bottleneck. And it was recommended to me by the Alderaan folks that the way to go is Threadripper if you can get it.
Yeah, if you can get it, though.
Quantities are challenging with the certain models of the Threadrippers, which I thought we were done with that issue, but apparently not.
Am I seeing this right? Does this Precision 7865 have awesome removable drive sleds on the front of it?
It sure does.
I haven't seen this in years. I love these.
And it comes with a way you can mount M2 drives, or you can mount, traditional, 7200 drives.
Oh,
so
that's great for a system like this, because you could have just, different disks with different OSs on there, or different project disks in the second slot. I have been wanting PCs to bring this back. I was literally talking to the boys off air recently after a LUP about how my PCs had this and how much I miss this.
Well, I should mention one of the config options is Ubuntu for this.
Oh, good for them. Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, I went with, for the drives, I went with, for one of the removable ones, it's a 2 terabyte NVMe drive. I wanted to go 4, but Dell's markup, I don't know if they've been browsing Apple's website recently.
Yep.
But their markup on storage was really stupid. And I'm like, I could literally slide this out myself. Or honestly, I have like 3 other drive pays. I could just throw another one in, right? So I went with a 4 terabyte spinning drive, 7200. That is basically for, like documents and Steam or whatever. The RAM, I stuck at 128. It can go up to 256.
Yeah.
But again, Dell's upgrade pricing versus like going to Newegg was kind of dumb. 12 gigabyte NVIDIA card. That's where I kind of cheaped out. It's on the NVIDIA card because those GPU prices are still a little too rich for my blood.
Yeah, and it sounds like CPU is really what you need.
And CPU is what I need, right?
Ironically, that you're working on an Unreal project, but it's CPU that you need.
Well, if you think about it, because it's compiling a game and
Yeah.
linking a bunch of SDKs.
Absolutely,
So,
yeah.
I'm not doing the art for the project. I'm sure the designers are doing everything on the GPU, right?
Right. I'm sure it matters a lot for them.
I'm sure it matters a lot. Yeah. So it's an interesting rig. It's got a nostalgia feeling for me because it's, man, they've even got that nice little hook thing that Dell does where you can just like press the button on the side and the whole case just opens up.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like
Back when you were like supposed to be able to get inside the computer.
Right, and they know you're going to be keeping this for a while and upgrading it. So I'm happy with this so far. It does get very hot. Like I can note, I have it under. I have 2 desks in my office. I have it under the other desk, and my toes are noticeably toasty when I'm compiling things.
That's interesting because they do promote. Like they kind of like as one of the features they say it has a patented advanced thermal technology to help keep.
I think
the
it just
system
blows
running.
it all out.
Yeah,
It blows
right.
it all out,
Yeah, it's
both
got a fan
sides.
system.
It's got a fan in the front and the back, and it's just it's quiet though, so
That's
it's
good.
nice.
Okay.
It's yeah. I mean, it's Windows 11, which it's fine. I'm struggling with just getting it to understand that I don't want to use OneDrive.
Yeah, or
I will never want to use OneDrive.
You don't necessarily need Cortana or nothing. You don't need all that stuff, do you?
Yeah, I want all the CPU power.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it needs. They honestly should. Maybe they do now, but they honestly should have like a development mode or working or production mode or something, because people that are doing video production don't want that crap going either.
Don't want that crap either. Yeah, but Windows 11 is okay. I'm PowerShell. I will say PowerShell 7. Their love of cloning the Linux commands makes it very usable for me.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, so I also installed WSL and Penguin from White Foundry, which is kind of my go-to WSL distro, and it's a really kind of kick-ass dev station. XCOM has never looked better. Magic Arena's running great.
It gets you with the gaming. Although, come on, that's great on Linux now too. But I bet you. I mean, I'll make a prediction. I bet you by the end of the year that thing's running Linux.
That's very possible. I mean, or I honestly just go out on like an Amazon Lightning deal or a Newegg sale, buy another NVMe drive, and just slap Ubuntu on
That's
it.
the thing. That's what I love about those removable drives. Yeah, that seems like a killer rig though.
The price was. I was kind of surprised at so much so that I ended up looking up the processor. Like, is this like some shitty thing where they put Threadripper on it, but it's not a Threadripper? Because remember, like, who used to do that? Was it?
Oh man, it could still happen. Like some of the Intel chips will have some features just randomly missing.
There's always the Intel generations where you have to watch because it turns out that like the new generation sucks for certain things compared to the old one. Like all the i7s are not made. Fun fact, they're not equal. All the i7s.
Yeah, and not all. Even the i3s, like some of them, some of them even support ECC and some of them don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this kind of shenanigans, I feel like it's been going on forever. Back in the good old days of AMD K6s and the Intel P3, and they started just really getting product differentiated, and kind of shenanigans sneaks in. And all of a sudden, you're right. You'll get something mislabeled. It's basically just like a rebadged chip.
Yeah, it's crazy. Oh, the one upgrade I didn't put in here that I did was I upgraded the networking card to be a 2.5 gig. That's me having way too much faith in my ISP and hoping that they have a higher service come out in the next year or two.
Yeah, but then you got to get a new switch too.
It's fine.
Yeah,
I don't care.
It's worth it.
We have too many kids in this house streaming too many things.
I know, right? Tell me about it. Everything they do now is like a megabit at least.
Yeah.
If not more. It's a baseline. Sometimes it's more. Just consistent megabit each device.
Yes. Oh, but wired into Ethernet on this one. And
Yeah.
This really is my throwback machine. I'm on the Ethernet. You can open it up. You can upgrade it. Swappable drives.
It's great, isn't it?
RAM that's not soldered into the motherboard? Who would have thunk it?
Or honestly, just not having to plug everything in through USB-C. It's
you,
nice
you
to
don't
have.
like daisy chaining Thunderbolt?
It's nice to have, but man, I tell you what, my main workstation here at the studio now for the last year has been just an old desktop that I refurbed by putting a bunch of parts in it and, just beefed it up and then hooked up a bunch of monitors, wired keyboard, just really traditional, and a bunch of discs, and it's great. It's really solid. Laptops are great, but we really got it right with the workstation. The PC workstation is a special kind of product that should continue to be celebrated, and I think more people in the workspace should be switching from laptops to workstations when they can, because it's a better experience.
I totally agree. On my MacBook Pro, I'm having an issue where I'm almost full on the storage, the 2 terabytes of storage, and there is absolutely nothing I can do about that other than like routinely delete things.
Well, and when you get if you get something that you don't want to store on the cloud, that's really private, or maybe it's really valuable, and you're going to store it on a computer, you start thinking about like, well, what do I do if this thing has a failure? If a laptop has a failure, it's kind of glued together at this point. I'm really kind of just going to be dependent on a technician at a store. If a workstation has a failure, you pop that one button, your side panel comes off, you can boot off of a USB thing, you can unplug drives, you can remove graphics, you can troubleshoot, you can swap components, you have rescue operations you can perform for your mission critical whatever it is. And it's just having that optionality even. Just having that optionality makes me trust a workstation more than I can trust a laptop or, say, a phone.
Yeah, there's more ways to recover it, too. And you're not necessarily knocked on your back like a turtle if there is a problem. So this is where I get in trouble. I wish Apple would, make something like this that wasn't $20,000.
Well, yeah.
Because it doesn't need to be. It shouldn't be that much money.
I've got, an old Intel Mac Pro, one of the the second gens or third gens.
Oh, yeah.
It's just sitting around. I'm not using it for anything. It's not even plugged in, but it's a great machine. Same thing, one latch, side panel falls right off. Here's my expansion ports, my PCI. It's this weird thing called PCI. Here's my SATA ports. It was clean, but expandable and really kind of modular in a way that we just don't build them anymore.
We don't build them like that anymore. We've decided that I don't even know. I guess we really are in this age of disposable dev.
You're
machines.
edge casing, man. You're edging here.
I am edging, right? Okay, so yeah, sure. If there's no more Unreal work for me to do anytime soon, this machine. I mean, I feel like I spent so much money on it, I would have to just become a WSL guru at that point.
You're gonna specialize in Unreal work for another couple of years.
Yeah, something. I mean, or I will be writing the fastest Python extensions for Alice that are all blazingly fast on my machine, and then we go up to the poor Docker containers that we deploy things on. It's like, oh no, you don't have 128 gigs of RAM.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I'm sure you'll find uses, but I think that's the problem, and that's why fewer and fewer companies. But I think this thing is looking really slick. I think it's this and the Thelio for me if I'm ever getting a workstation. These are the two.
Thelio's great. Thelio's great. The only one of the things that turned me this way was the just ridiculous sale. It was one of those things where they let you use a sale and they email you those coupons all the time. So I got to stack it, which is nice. Because their top line price for this was $8,800. So it's a lot. Yeah.
They are more expensive. Of course, if they were more common, if people were buying more workstations, these prices might not be so outrageous.
Well, and I did buy the 3 years you come to my house and fix it warranty.
Oh, dude, that's such a luxury for that's as a businessman, it's a luxury.
Yeah. I had that once when I used to run Dells, and it was, remember those old crappy tacky keyboards with the rubber underneath them?
Yeah.
Yeah, it broke on me. The guy was there in 2 hours, and it was like watching a surgeon. He just cracked it open, put a new keyboard, and booted it up. He's like, okay, I'm good. I'm leaving.
Well, with the workstation, he could actually swap out a component.
Yeah.
And get you back up and going again. Whereas with a laptop or something, he's probably just going to swap the whole machine. You're going to have to restore all your data, set stuff back up again.
Download Visual Studio.
See, this is what I'm saying. 2024 should be the year we save the workstation. Make workstations great again, I say.
You know what? I just want to say it. Mac Studio, there should be like a Mac Studio Pro or something.
Yeah.
That is maybe a little girthier, a little fatter,
Yeah.
but
Just a
there's
couple, just a couple of things
like-
you can upgrade, right? A couple of disks, maybe put some more RAM in there yourself.
even if it's just like SSD and RAM.
Yeah.
Although then Apple doesn't get those juicy upgrade margins, but
But they'll sell some. I mean, I don't know, man. I'll tell you what. If you could buy a bare bones Mac Studio, maybe it's like a little bit taller, and maybe it's got one PCI slot, RAM, and a couple SD cards you could put in there. You're gonna buy a few of those if you can buy them bare bones and then upgrade them. It just seems like a good strategy, but not one they're interested in, because when they went to the M series SoC, they really leaned all in on completely integrated. That's all that RAM. It's all in part of it. It's just, I think, the direction they're going for a while now. I don't know. Maybe they'll surprise us this year and they'll change that, but I think it's going to be years until we see them start breaking that stuff up again.
I think it's going to be years, and I don't even know if it's really realistic.
Oh, it'll happen.
You think they'll break it up again?
Long term. Yeah.
I guess the question is, how's the Mac Pro selling?
No, I think it's, the reason why I think they'll eventually end up kind of separating it back out again is because computers started this way. And just the realities of wanting to have different components at different speeds and upgrading and all, it just sort of forced us to modularize it again. We didn't design it that way initially. We kind of ended up that way as sort of solving problems. And who knows, but I wouldn't be too surprised if we just don't repeat that cycle again. And as time goes on, you see them kind of breaking it up a little bit. Maybe the memory becomes a little more user serviceable and the disk and stuff like that. Maybe.
I mean, even if we got back to like the iMac, where it used to be, there was that little RAM drawer, right? You could at least upgrade the RAM. I mean, because these types of machines are a big investment, and like I could tell you, files are big. That's all I'm going to say. Files are very big.
We've got an older iMac. I mean, it's unfortunately it's just kind of getting too long in the blue teeth now, but it fully functional screen works, everything works. Just the hard drive died. It was like one of the last Macs, and we bought it used. One of the last Macs they sold was spinning rust. And the spinning rust died. So I looked at what it takes to go through that machine and replace that disk, and you have to go through the monitor to get to the disk on that one.
Oh, you got to get like the suction thing.
Yeah, and break the glue and remove the screen carefully and not busting the wires, and then remove the board and all of that just to get to the disk, just to have a Mac that's going to be supported for another year.
And it will never be the same once you attempt that, even if you succeed.
It's just like if you're going to be the world's best design company, and you're going to claim to do all this crap for the environment, and you're going to pay for me to charge my Apple Watch in some sort of weird nebulous carbon tax, then maybe you could have a slot that ejects disks, and I just slide in a new standard 2.5-inch or whatever, or NVMe, whatever. Like some genius over there can't figure out how to make an NVMe disk pop out like an SD card. I mean, give me a break. Come on, solve this problem. It's better for the environment. It's better for the consumer.
Yeah, but is it better for their bottom line?
You're right. I'm such an optimist. That's why I think my next rig, and I'm not joking, I think is going to be a framework.
I know a couple people who swear by those. Yeah.
Brent got a 13-inch one, really likes it. Alex from Self-Hosted just got one, really likes it. He got the AMD one. He really likes it. He's running Linux on there. It's working good. So I'm thinking that, or maybe there's still a couple of the ThinkPads. There's a 13-inch ThinkPad right now I think I'm feeling a smaller laptop too, because I've been carrying around the 15-inch Max Pro as my laptop, and then at home I have the 14-inch X1 Carbon, and I like that size a lot more.
Yeah, I could definitely see my next laptop being something like an Air, just because.
Especially with the workstation setup.
With the workstation now, I don't need the.
Yeah, and I'm doing more and more because I've got all my devices on Tailscale. No longer a sponsor of the show, but I still use the hell out of it. And since I have all my devices on Tailscale, it's like, well, okay, if I'm at home and I'm on my 14-inch ThinkPad and I want to do something that needs more lift, well, I'll just use my machine in the studio. It's not really a problem. I have it on a smart plug, so I can just power it up really quickly if I need it. So I feel like I'm getting more and more to that point where I think my next one's going to be a small one, probably a framework, and then just keep upgrading it, every couple of releases if they just keep those motherboards compatible like they have so far. Maybe I'll do like the TikTok thing. I don't know. I think that could be my future. And then my computer budget goes into a workstation like you've done. I don't know if I'm going to go that baller, but I think that would.
Well, it makes sense, especially if you're going to be traveling a lot too. You kind of want a cheap laptop. God forbid it, takes an IPA to the face or something. Like you don't want a $3,000 MacBook Pro to.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you to our members. The Coder QA crew made this episode possible, so shout out to them. Thank you, guys. CoderQA.co if you'd like to become a member. You get the Coder. Well, I was going to say you get the Coder Show ad free, but I guess Drew probably cuts out my pitches for joining the membership. Don't cut this one. Leave this one in. Well, they probably. I don't know, but generally, CoderQA.co plus you get the Coderly. We'll get one of those out to you in the future. This episode, since we're pre-recording, doesn't feature any boost, but please do keep boosting those in. That's also a way to support each production directly at the amount that you're comfortable with. That's the idea with value for value. If you enjoy the conversation, you get some value out of some insights, or it makes you even just rethink something or reaffirm something, and you enjoy that, please consider supporting directly with a boost. You can get a new podcast app and boost that way, or just get Cash App or Strike and scan the QR code on Fountain Site and send your message in. It's really simple. We'll have links in the show notes. And we're really grateful for everybody who supports this production. Thank you very much. Mr. Dominic, is there anywhere you want to send the people off into the new year?
Go to DominicM.com, my blog. I plan to write a predictions post if I ever can not get sucked into endless games of Pokemon cards.
Yeah, for us, it's the holiday crud going around. The wife's got it right now. I had it, thankfully, during the break. So, this is always what happens to me is I get sick during our breaks. And everybody's like, did you have a great time off? And I'm like, well, no, I got sick.
Do you like that every few years I might actually take a vacation?
Yeah.
Every 4 years or something? Yeah. I'm always sick when I go out. It's like I always have it's like real sick, like the flu.
What is it? Here's what I want to know. Because the first couple of times I was like, oh, it's a coincidence. And now it's been like, I have gone right up to the line of near life and death. And the moment I stop working, whatever that deadly thing that's about to kill me, all of a sudden takes me out. But and it's not until the day I stop working that all of a sudden I become succumb to it. What is that? My mom postulates maybe it's like some sort of ADD thing. I'm not paying attention to it. But I'm genuinely would like to know. So boost in with that insight. If you experience this, what is that? Because I'd like to get ahead of it so that way when I take some time off, I don't spend that time off sick.
Right. You're not sitting in the camper or in my case, the hotel room doing nothing.
Yeah. That's what happened when I went to El Salvador too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, there you go. A little old man radio for you. I know that's what you come for. The show is at Coder Radio Show on Weapon X. I'm at Chris LAS. And you know what? Links to what we talked about today, that's on our website, coder.show/551. You'll also find our RSS feeds over there so you can subscribe in your app of choice or go to just coder.show/RSS and look at the raw feed. We're back to our regular live time on Mondays at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern at jblive.tv. That's in your time zone at jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. Lots of great shows over there at the website too. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you right back here next week. Thank you, Drew. We appreciate you. All right.
The other thing I didn't mention, the shipping on the Thalio was going to be $1,000.
Holy crap.
I don't know if it was a bug, but I was like, I need to order this now because I was getting a bit of pressure from the Alderaan folks to get cracking.
Get going, yeah.
Yeah, and
you're like, this is a lot of money, guys. I'm just taking a moment.
Well, for both Dell and System 76, the build times were measured in weeks.
Yeah.
So I was like,
yeah. So even once you pull the trigger, it's going to take weeks.
Yeah, and I'm like, $1,000 shipping. I'm like,
Jesus Christ.
And Dell's free shipping, so yeah.
Wow. I feel so bad because if you go outside the U.S. to get the robe, depending on where you ship, it could be $100 just to ship the robe.
No, I mean, I don't think it's anything bad that they did. I think the shipping costs.
Just the freaking
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me see if I just go in now and kind of like configure a comparable machine. What the shipping would be.
I'm going to release the titles. Please go vote if you're still watching. The Workstation Lifestyle coming in last by me. Platform versus platform. It's a little.
Save the works. Make workstations great again.
Yeah, make workstations great again. Save the workstation. Runtime Heroes. Running Windows for the new year. Mike's big Windows box. I kind of like the Workstation Lifestyle. I wonder if we've done that.
All right, ready?
Yeah.
UPS Ground 470. 3-day select 941.
Oh.
Second day air 1,155.
Holy crap!
So that was a pretty big. Also, like not a lot of front I/O, and this one, the removable drives. I was like, that sounds really good. I was like, I don't know.
I know that is so nice.
And the Windows license was included, so it's like another because I have to do Windows Pro for the WSL stuff. So I was like,
I think we should go Workstation Lifestyle. I kind of like that.
All right, let's do it.
I've never used that before.
Is it the Workstation Lifestyle or Workstation Lifestyle?
What do you think? I could go either way.
I think you need the, or do we lose the like Sean Parker?
I think the too, because it's like the Workstation Lifestyle. So I don't know, but I could be persuaded because I always like shorter. But I feel like it needs the.
I think it needs the, or else it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, there you go. We're all done for the year.
All right, there it is.
Well,
I will
have a great holiday, Mr. Dominic.
See you in 2024.
Yep. Of course, I'll be on Slack if you need anything, but yeah, otherwise.
Oh, I'm sure something is going to happen. We're going to end up doing an emergency show.
Emergency pod.
Yep.
All right.
Bye.
See you later. Bye, Z's.
Bye, chat room.
Yes, chat room. Thank you for making it. Appreciate you for hanging with us. It's always a lot of fun to do these live because, honestly, it's kind of like at this moment, it's like, oh, now I'm all by myself. But you're still there. And I appreciate that. We will have Linux Unplugged in the RSS feeds, but it won't be live this week. I think this is the last live anything. Wow. Well, you just made it the last live anything. Well, planned at least for this year. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. If you missed anything, the entire stream will be captured at Jupiter.tube, and the partial stream is kept at YouTube, at least for now. I don't know. Well, we may have to change some of that. We're going to be probably moving Jupiter.tube and all of that, but we shall figure it out. Appreciate you hanging out with us. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I enjoyed you. Have a great rest of your day. If you like, take the rest of the day off. Tell them Chris said you could do it. And they can reach out at Chris LAS if they have any questions. I'll verify. I'll back you. All right. Happy holidays and Happy New Year.
Thank you.